I'm Nick G. This is a couch. I'm on it. I'm Nick G, a dude on the couch. I kind of trolled around my morning stuff. I like to know what's going on. Turns out, not a lot going on. Like everybody's talking about, the Hillary Clinton thing, which so far as we know was nothing. We're talking about the release of, what the Kamala Harris campaign should have done. You know what I mean? Not a lot to talk about. One of the things that fascinated me, though, that came out yesterday was Ellie Leonard, Zev Shalev. I feel like Lev was in that. Anyway, Lev Parnas. They was talking about the Von Epsteins were a banking community in France. The Rothschilds bought out the Von Epsteins when, their banking, they were rivals. When their banking community, when they started losing a little bit, the Rothschilds bought them out. So the Rothschilds bought the Von Epsteins out. So the narrative that we've had so far, mind you, I am not a researcher. I'm a dude on a couch who watches media. As I understand it, our storyline has been that Epstein was just some scrappy kid from New York. You know what I'm saying? Just scrappy kid. Just happenstanced into being a teacher. Just happenstanced into being a financial advisor. And then ball rolled. In this sense, he was already networked. He was already part of it. He was an individual who was willing. You know what I mean? It's like we also we separate Donald Trump and Jeff Epstein as, this one guy, they kind of came together. They were buds. That's not the case. I'm a comic book head, not as big as some people can get, but I dig them. Comic books. One of the best part about comic books is the constant fiction and conceptual. As I say that, I'm a wrestling fanatic for the same reason. Because in the I'm going to be 49 in October. In the nearly 50 years of wrestling watching that I've watched more storylines, more swerves, most were trash, most were whatever. But as we're learning, a lot of the Vince McMahon storylines of the Attitude Era were based on shit he was doing to people in the same vein of Epstein and all this other stuff. But he had his own little world. So it's, we don't associate Vince McMahon with Epstein, even though Trump and Vince McMahon are together, associated. Epstein and Vince McMahon are not associated together. Trump and Epstein, yes. Trump and Vince McMahon, yes. Epstein and Vince McMahon, no. As far as I know. The only WWE connection that I have seen to Jeff Epstein is there's an allegation that Ashley Massaro, the winner of, I feel like it was the first Tough Enough competition that WWE had where you competed for a contract. Ashley Massaro from New Jersey. She came in, she had this gimmick, hat backwards, denim. I used to make the joke that when Liv Morgan finally came across our screens in NXT, her gimmick was Ashley Massaro. That was my big joke. Ha 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 ha. Because I'm funny. So Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon is doing his thing. He's got his family. He's got the same people, the same time frame, Miss Hawaiian Tropic, as Donald Trump and Jeff Epstein were doing their modeling gig, where they were, going to Miss Hawaiian Tropic joints. But I'm not saying Vince McMahon and Jeff Epstein. I'm saying Donald Trump and Jeff Epstein, Vince McMahon and Donald Trump. I got lost. I was talking about the Von Epsteins in Europe, the banking family that was bought out by the Rothschilds banking family. Jeff Epstein wasn't just some cat that popped up in New York who was scrappy and lived in a shitty situation. That's our narrative. Another counter narrative to where we are right now is where Erica Kirk was this absolute nobody, picked up with Charlie Kirk, and she was a trad wife. And now we're finding out she was heavily connected to Israel. She's heavily connected to human trafficking. Hey, who else? Donald Trump, Jeff Epstein. So we're name dropping people. We are name dropping people as if they're playing cards that we're going to trade. Take the people out. There is an international, trans-global human trafficking operation of Eastern European girls and boys. Nobody talks about the boys. Why does nobody talk about the boys? Because the boys don't talk about that stuff. I'm going to be 49 in October, born in 1977. At no point do I personally judge somebody's internal function until it externally affects other people. If you feel like going around stabbing people, your internal conflict is affecting our external life. So in that sense, yeah, there's judgment. Stop stabbing people, bro. On the other hand, who you want to fuck? On the other hand, who you want to hang with, the food you want to eat, the music you want to listen to, none of that matters. You know what I'm saying? But these people they're trading people. They're trading commodities. If you know anything about this dude named Zev Shalev, Zev Shalev's working on a project called The Greatest Heist. And he points out that every American crash in our modern era post-Reagan, Donald Trump made money. Jeffrey Epstein made money. As you're looking through the correspondence, and this is me being Jeffro on my BlackBerry, all the correspondence coming in and out shows organization around 9/11, around banking crisis, around global events. You think about on the news, and I mean in the traditional news, you know what I mean? I go to MS Now, formerly MSNBC was my stuff because I followed Rachel Maddow, the independent journalist who made her way to MS Now and changed the landscape of the show itself, the channel itself. That's my go-to. But prior to that, I went to CNN and I hated it because in the beginning, it was Soledad O'Brien and Bill Hemmer. That was my initial morning show. Then it became Soledad O'Brien and Miles O'Brien, which I always laugh because Miles O'Brien's an engineer on Deep Space Nine. Haha. And then, Bill Hemmer went to Fox, but I didn't care. Don't give a fuck about him. I watched Lou Dobbs. I think about that now. I watched Lou Dobbs. And at no point did I red flag anything that he was saying. I was just kind of learning my geopolitical identity at 20, whatever. And, then when I saw him, same thing with Bill Hemmer, when I see them go over to Fox and they're saying the things they're saying, I'm like, oh, I watched you every day, bro. But when I think about the traditional news, this morning the conversation's all about Hillary Clinton. buzzword. Kamala Harris, buzzword. Democrats, DNC, buzzwords. Republicans, bing. But what does it mean? Man, the problem with being biological is the breathing thing. 1 second. I was watching Raging Moderates this morning, and Raging Moderates had Aaron Parnas, my dude, genuine, independent journalist, Jessica Tartloff, genuine person who does the research. Like, we see her on the 5 and she's shooting quick. She's not shooting quick. I watched a video yesterday of a funk band. Gosh, who are they covering? They were covering Soundgarden, Black Hole Sun, and it was just wild. But one of the favorite lines that I heard out of that is, improvisation isn't spontaneous. Improvisation is something that they've practiced so many times that it just comes natural. I feel like that's what Jessica Tartloff does. The 5 starts, they say some dumbass shit. She knows the topics they're talking about. And I know from watching her as a fan, she spends a lot of time doing the research hours before the show starts. That's how she's able to shoot so quick and loose, because she's got the data packed, locked, loaded, and ready to go. So I was listening to Jessica Tartloff and Aaron Parnas. And, like I say, I'm hearing buzzwords. I'm hearing buzz names. I'm hearing buzz topicals. Hillary Clinton. Gaza. Kamala Harris. Epstein. But everything's spoken to in an abstract. But that's what brings me to Substack. That's why, I think about maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, I was really excited about certain individuals who I was learning new journalism, new concepts from. I was learning Pan-Africanism. I was learning all these things. Not that I am not now. But I stopped subscribing to their pods, to their Patreons, to their all this other stuff, because it's free. It's free. I'm going to these individuals for their characteristics that bring me in, but information is free. For everybody that I pay for who's telling me something, there's somebody who I am not paying for who's telling me more. An example of that, and I am leaving my topic, is Shane Urak. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I don't hear it. I read it. Yirak, Shane Urak. I'm watching this dude. I've been watching this dude since I came to Substack, because I'm wholly impressed by the minutia and detail in his global reporting, his global journalism. I'm listening to him talk the other day, and Shane's like, "Yeah, dude, I'm 25 years old. I'm almost 50, man. He is closer to my children's age than he is to mine." And I am wholly impressed. For all of the other people who have individual contacts, have done individual research, have individual perspectives, Shane Urak amazes me. My man does the work. My man does the work every day, not a one and done. Be impressed. Go subscribe to Shane Urak. Not a paid promotion. Anyway, total sidetrack. Raging Moderates, I'm listening to buzzwords. I'm listening to 2 wonky people speak on topics. When I'm listening to them talk, I realized we listen to the kayfabe, the story, the narrative is not the American people. Is not the American project. It's not the American concept. It's not the American values. We do not present American laws. This is what we stand for. When I'm watching people from the traditional news who are coming to new journalism on Substack and YouTubes, where they're independently doing their thing without the backing of major corporations, without the backing of major money. We're talking about a show, a TV show. This is the traditional role of Republicans. This is the traditional role of Democrats. What should they do as a strategy? What should we do as this? We've learned to watch TV and give commentary to watching TV. We're watching traditional roles. I'm a Star Trek fanatic. You're going to hear me say it a billion times. I'll say it every video. Right now, the big thing is new Trek versus old Trek. When I watch the original series with James T. Kirk, with Spock, Bones, Sulu, Chekhov, when I'm watching old Trek, I'm still me. I still have my identity, my perspective, my education. When I'm watching episodes where Scotty is pulling a young Yowman to come sit on his lap while they're on leave and he's tipping shit back, that is the number one engineer on the ship pulling in a fucking child subordinate to play mama on his daddy knee. When I'm listening to Bones and Kirk interact with Spock, nearly every episode ends with some form of ethnocentrism and a joke at Spock's expense. Spock being the alien on the ship, the one. Welcome to the future. We're diverse. We got weirdos. One. That's the way that I see old Trek. I see sexism. I see ethnocentrism. You know what I'm saying? I see bigotry, and I don't see it. And there's the script, and then there's this kind of, like, I feel like it took until the show Mad Men to come out to accurately capture just the gross behavior of what Star Trek had, being it was the 60s. With that being said, new Trek, the absolute bigotry, ethnocentrism, and racism of original Star Trek, which is ironic because every script was warning against it, was expanding past it. But that's when, like when you see an old guy telling a little mama to smile, he don't realize that he's being a piece of shit because women are expected to be bright and pretty. He thinks he's being a good old guy. Hey, brighten up your life, ho. New Trek versus old Trek. New Trek, the bad guy, is adversity itself. You are your own obstacle. Growing past yourself, growing out of yourself. Original Trek is very literal. Half a dude's face is black, half a dude's face is white, and his mortal enemy is half a dude's face is white, half a dude's face is black. Dig it? The point is, while visually you look different, you're the same. In the meantime, they're ethnocentric and racist towards Spock. Ha ha ha, punchline, pointy ear man. You bleed green. I mean, there's episodes like that. There's an episode that I think about nearly all of the time in the modern era of the original series, where they go to a planet. Beep, boop, 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 boop. They do some calculations, and this many people must die. Why must this many people die? Because Because war is so messy. If we just calculate some motherfuckers away, we don't gotta go to war. We just eliminate some population, they won't feel it. They're just dust after a second. I think about that all the time because as I'm listening to our punditry, that's what I hear. I hear spreadsheet calculator math deducing organic and grassroots identity. It doesn't compute. I think about the episode where Uhura and Kirk were forced to smooch. They kept fucking up the retakes so that CBS had alternatives. They kept fucking them up, laughing, speaking a line, breathing, farting, whatever. So that the only take was the interracial smooch. Big deal for TV. Congratulations to historians who are going to say, my big anecdote on Uhura is Martin Luther King talked Uhura out of quitting the show because she felt like she wasn't making an impact. And he's like, bro, you are a black woman in the future in the stars. We need you. But when I watched that show, this show that changed hearts, minds, and perspectives at a time when we had a pinhole called a TV with 3 channels, when I watched this show in 2026, I almost, right now, we're in a rewatch. For my dollar, there will always be an episode of Star Trek playing on my TV. I don't mean continuously. We watch other stuff. But we are currently watching Star Trek Discovery. Why are we currently watching Star Trek Discovery? Because previously to Discovery, we were watching Discovery. We were watching Picard before that. You dig what I'm saying? We stay in timeline order. So right now, we're going to get to Discovery. When the Red Angel goes to where they're going, no spoilers, we are going to stop Discovery and we are going to start the original series, The Man Trap, because that's the timeline order. Because I want to see Spock lose his sister that we do not talk about. And then I want to see Spock. Wait a second. I just said that wrong. Because this is the first time that we've gone back and started it. Because before the original series, now, we have Strange New Worlds. Because now that I think about that, when Spock's sister, the one you don't know about, goes to the future, which I didn't mean to say, Spock stays on the Enterprise. No, he gets changed to the Enterprise. On the Enterprise, he meets Pike. Pike is the captain in the first episode of the original series. The episode is called The Man Trap, 2-parter. And then we go through Strange New Worlds. And then Pike leaves. Kirk comes in. Then we have the original series. Why is this relevant? Spock, baby. Spock. In Discovery, we learned Spock's autistic. I never knew that. They never presented it, but we're bringing new stuff into our things. What Star Trek does, it creates a morality play. It is literal when you're watching the original series. When you're watching the original series of Star Trek, it's half vaudeville, half stage play, half stage direction. A lot of times when I'm watching the original series, I start thinking about more like, uh, the time period. I see the stage show that was The Outer Limits, The Twilight Zone, Ray Bradbury. You know what I mean? When I hear people walking around, "Dum, dum, dum," I hear, like, the hollow footsteps on planks on a soundstage for my dollar, because fiction isn't real to me. I have trouble suspending my imagination. So when I'm reading fiction, when I'm hearing fiction, when I'm watching fictional stuff played out, I'm breaking it all down. I'm not watching Spock do a mind meld on a Horta. A Horta is a rock. Eh, I'm looking at this critter that is being depicted by elements, by efforts. One of my favorite things that I think about now, and it is so simple when it comes to Star Trek. When the doors open, there's a dude pulling a string, pulling another string to make it shut. That's me watching fiction. You know what I'm saying? Y'all want to? I'm jumping in the chat real quick so I can say what up to my people in the Tizel. Oh. So why am I talking about Star Trek? Why am I talking about Star Trek here? Because when I'm watching Star Trek, the morality play, I get more of an allegory about real world events. You think about this. When you're watching Star Trek, you know your Spocks, your Picards, your Worfs, your Lieutenant Commander Datas, your Lieutenant Tillys, your Michael Burnhams, your Captain Pikes. You know these name brand people. The complement of people on each ship is so vast. We know about Geordi LaForge, Miles O'Brien, Kira Nerys, Odo, Quark. Do you know the names of all the Ferengi that work in Quark's bar on Deep Space Nine? Besides Guinan, Farscape, I get it. But let me also say, I'm not a fan of science fiction. I am a fan of Star Trek. You dig? It's all about the script. I don't go for Battlestar Galactica. Farscape is fascinating because I get it. What I get a kick out of, and I'm referring to Joe. Star Trek is awesome, but if you check out Farscape, seriously, by the way, growing up, I had such a crush on Data. I'm entertained by Brent Spiner, like as a human being. He was a character actor doing gimmicky shit. He was on Night Court. He was on Night Court and he was stupid. And he played a bumpkin. But he was that kind of stuff. And this is one of the fascinating things about watching Star Trek. You actually, as they develop the show, you get to see each person's individual stuff come out in their character play. Brent Spiner is a character actor. He's a silly. He isn't so much like a comedian as he is an impression. You know what I mean? You see this dude. So when he comes on and his character is Lieutenant Commander Data, this analytical android who is very serious, doesn't understand humor. One of my favorite things is when boop, Q gives him a laugh. Love it. Because everybody deserves that. But Brent Spiner as Data is the exact opposite of every other role he played. That's my favorite because Brent Spiner was nobody until he was somebody else than who he was. You know what I'm saying? Love it. Now, I only know him as Lieutenant Commander Data, and I only remembered him being on Night Court because of the Night Court reboot. Yeah. Back to punditry. We keep name dropping big names. We talk about Donald Trump as if he's the dude. He's not the dude. He's the gimmick. You know what I'm saying? Jack Tunney. Does anybody know who Jack Tunney is? I'll tell you who Jack Tunney is. When I was growing up in the WWF, if shit was going down, Jack Tunney was the man who came down because he was the guy who was managing all of wrestling. He was the guy making the decisions. Jack Tunney was the guy who decided whether you had a job or not. Jack Tunney was nobody. You know what I mean? Like right now, you know, you have the general managers. Facts. You have the managers, you have the general managers, you have the presidents, you have the this. When you're watching WWE, formerly WWF, for those who don't know, Vince McMahon wanted to buy out the stock ticker WWF from the World Wildlife Foundation. They sent a panda to hit him on the head with a chair, saying no. So what does he do? He changes the name of his father's company for the second time. The WW World Wide Wrestling Foundation went to the World Wrestling Foundation to being World Wrestling, the WWE, the camp, the F out. Everything, Joe, I loved the WWF when it was about saving animals. I grew up the way I grew up. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And when I was growing up, hold on, I have impertinent shit here. Okay. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I was raised by hippies. It was Calypso Log, it was Jane Goodall, it was Coco the gorilla. Everything was about UNICEF. You know what I'm saying? Hands Across America. Like there was such an effort that the 70s and the hippie movement gave momentum to. Yo, word, man, word. Derek, I love some Dark Side of the Ring. I'm a fanatic. If I can speak right now, my favorite wrestler actually right now is Leilani Kai. For all of the boys' stories from the road, all of the Vader, all of the Undertaker, all of the Steve Austin, all of the Samoans, all of the Paul Heyman, all of the Roddy Piper, all of the Hulk Hogan, all of the Brutus the Barber Beefcake, all of the deep dirt on Macho Man, Randy Savage, all of the good stuff. I love all of the road stories, but Leilani Kai fascinates me right now because she wrestled in WrestleMania 1. And here she is right now in the year of our Lord, 2026. And she is giving not road stories. She's giving the stories from the fabulous Moolah. She lived on Moolah's property. She worked on Moolah's property. When she did tours by way of the fabulous Moolah. So when Leilani Kai is talking about her road stories, she's in Japan. She's in the US. She's traveling. And not only is she traveling, She's sharing survival stories of this orphan who saw wrestling and knew what she wanted to do with her life, and it's fascinating. I got distracted from everything I wanna talk about because I get hyped about wrestling. Leilani Kai should be your favorite wrestler right now because she's the one who's bringing road stories that haven't been talked about. She's the one giving the perspective of women. I see her with her tag team partner, Judy Martin, all the time. I see her with, uh, man, I'm drawing a blank because my flywheel's spinning, but I see her doing overseas tours. I see her doing meeting up at Comic Cons. She has recently signed a, humanist. That Joe, that's exactly it. Humanist. We've stopped connecting with our biological existence for this stuff, you know? Back to Leilani Kai. She should be everybody's favorite because she is the legend who's in the WWE right now, who is saying all of the things that haven't already been cataloged and revised by Vince McMahon and the WWEF, whatever. Yeah. I kinda jumped on today because there literally was nothing to talk about. And I don't mean there weren't topics. I don't mean there weren't things going on. I mean, they're just talking about name brand buzzwords, name brand topical things. None of our name brand pundits are speaking about action, history. They're talking to each other. What do you think? Oh, I think this. What do you think? Oh, I think this. They're regurgitating shit they heard somebody else say. With that being said, here's the people you should be listening to of the name brand heads. If you see Katie Fang, go there. If you see Wajaha Ali, go there. If you see Jen Budd, go there. If you see Zev Shalev, go there. If you see Ellie Leonard, go there. If you see Ellie Mistal, go there. If you see Kate Justice, go there. If you see Lev Parnas, go there. This is where new journalism comes from. Now I'm going to go further because what comes up common to me doesn't come up common to everybody else because I've been digging. Urban View. Urban View. Let me put Urban View and XM channel on your radar. You. Urban View has Professor Greg Carr. Urban View has Karen Hunter. Urban View has Larry Daniel Favors. I just named 3 people. When I'm listening to the stupid ass bulwark and the stupid ass crooked media, and they're talking about their Poles and their black people and the brown people and their Latinos and their Democrats, who the fuck are they talking to? Let me quote the song, Let It Go by David Guetta. Who the fuck is Jared? That's how I feel about the punditry that goes on. Who the fuck are these people talking about? What the fuck are these people talking about when you could tune into Urban View, listen to Karen Hunter, listen to Greg Carr, the Reed Daniel Favors, Sabby Sab, Sabrina Salvati's her real name if you need to look it up, Amanda Seals, Brianna Joy Gray. This is where you're hearing about news. This is where you're hearing about action. This is where you should be hearing about the political atmosphere of a community of black people who tune in to a community of black people who are interacting with black people, brown people, Pacific people. But still, we tune into our white media where they talk about, you know, names, concepts. What should they do? Just give me a second. I'm still live. We aren't trusting the people who are giving information. We trust the people who look like us, who look like the people that we have been taught are the truth tellers. When in reality, we're ignoring the people who are telling the truth. I'm dipping. The house just got home. If you plant me, I grow. I'm Nick G. If you're going to believe in something, why not believe in me?